There's the transmission, and more up here. All bits and pieces. The carb does need a kit, or at least some new seals and cleaning up the kneel and seat, float, and so on. The tines are labeled, fortunately, right hand, left hand. I have to do some work on the wheels and the bracket. And there's the frame. Moment of truth approaches. Nothing like an impact wrench to speed up disassembly. There we go. Pretty messy. Got needle bearings in here, in a cage, bushing in the top end, and the nut shaft, big drive chain there. Not a lot of oil in there. Looks like it's high-point gear oil, but I'll see if I can find out exactly what it is. So there's the reduction. About 10 to 1 or so. Probably another 4 to 1 there. And it's got an Allen key in there, it looks like. Oh, no, split pin, a roll pin. Has to be driven through. Oh, take it further apart, see what we get. The seals for the final shaft down at the bottom are doubled. They have one inside, one outside. Same number. They're quite worn out. But you can't get double-sided seals, so I will see if they can be replaced by one. If not, I will be ordering 4 of these. This is the bracket that goes on the back that sets the wheel height for running through the furrows or using the total weight of the tines and the machine. And this one was broken off. I built that up with arc weld. Started at 120 amps, I cut it down to 100, and I cut it down to 80 as I built it up, and the point got smaller. Same thing here. And I'll file those down, and that should take care of that part. And the next thing to check is the carburetor. In the absence of new parts, I decided paint was a very substantial rebuild. So it's getting painted, but not much else. Taken apart, checked. The kludging continues. The seals that it needs, one local supplier wants 37 bucks a piece for them, and there's 4 of them, and about $20 for the other one. Or I can get them online, but they have to come from the US, and I'm going to be faced with about the same price by the time they get here. So what I'm going to do in the interim, since I don't know if this rototiller can handle the heavy clay soil that we have around here, I'm not putting $150 into it. So I'm putting in O-rings. This one has a handy recess right there, which compresses the ring perfectly for the shaft that goes in there. So I'll make sure it's well lubricated. And then I've cleaned the seals inside. That's the small one. And I'll put that in place. And then I have the bigger ones here. There's 4 of those. Likewise, I've cleaned them on the inside. Make sure they're still good even though they're worn. They're not ripped or anything. And then I will put these O-rings in. So these go in like this. This one shields the dirt and grime from outside, and this one is supposed to keep the oil in the transmission. So I'll put that O-ring in between them. That's my theory at the moment. See if it works. And compress that together. And then I'll make sure it's all well lubricated. So this will be clamped by the seals, and then it will provide an extra lip that oil has to pass through to get out. So hopefully that will slow the leak to an insignificant amount, but we'll see. Other than that, I've just taken things apart, painted them. I repaired the broken, missing pieces here. Not perfect, but it holds the pin well. It doesn't move around, so that should help with the wheels. And that's a case of putting it all back together once the paint dries. I've driven in this roll pin as much as I dare before I start damaging teeth. So one way to put them in further is to take a fairly large vice grip and keep working it in bit by bit. Turn that slightly. Sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. I put this all together, I siliconed it, I torqued it all up, and then I found that the pulley, the set screw has to be inside. It's too far down, and too much shaft sticks out. So apparently I have the chain drive on the wrong side. Now that I've taken it apart and checked it out and destroyed the gasket, which I was trying to save, found out that I did have it correct. I checked online, and a site called partselect.ca, or for the US partselect.com, had a manual for this tiller, which is a McDonough 500T. So I checked the parts breakdown for it, and the sprocket is in the right orientation and everything is correct. So apparently my memory failed me. I don't remember as big a gap between the pulley and the casing, but I can't see how it could be any less. So I've just made up a rubber washer to go on the outside of the housing, just to help prevent a little dust from getting at the seal, or dirt. And it's at the top, so it shouldn't get much dirt on it anyway, but it should be better off now. So moving on. Can only go one way. The marks match on the shaft for where the pulley sits. There's a thrust washer underneath. It lines up with this pulley. If I turn it around this way, then it's up too high and the cover can't close. So that's the only way it can go. I don't know why that big gap on the drive pulley. I don't remember it being like that. Fortunately, I have some gasket paper left over from previous projects. So I've cut a piece out using the other half of the transmission case that didn't have any shafts in it. And I've traced out all the holes. So I'll punch those. And then I have to carefully trim inside. There's no room for error because this is the last piece I had that was that big. So I just use this block of wood. Get one that fits. Punches for gasket material. Line them up. Rotate a bit. And there's the hole. The material goes inside and it works its way up and then pops out. That's all it takes. Actually cut this material very easily. End grain is best for this job, but putting it in the vise. The theory, that's it. Okay, checking all the holes, they do actually line up, which is good. Now I just have to check and cut the inside. One working rototiller. It still has a bad leak from the transmission, so I'm going to have to replace those 4 oil seals. So apparently it was not leaking too much before because it was almost empty. I did have a problem with the carburetor still leaking, so I just bailed and I took this one from another motor that I had scrounged up where I got the exhaust manifold from, and even though it was a Japanese motor and the one that's on this is American, it had imperial threads that bolted right up. It runs with it. I will show that in a minute. The other thing I have to do is, this is still a little too tight, and well, maybe it's loose enough now, but the tines were still spinning all the time. But it does lock up and rototill. I did try it up in the pasture up there, and it worked. The ground is still frozen, so basically all it did was mow grass. I did tighten the tines, which then resulted in a blood sacrifice, so everything's good. So I probably shouldn't have sharpened the tines as much as I did, but I'm sure they'll dull very quickly. And I don't yet know what this piece in the front is for, the silver piece. Rear wheels, or balance wheels, are much tighter than they used to be. They don't wiggle. Used to have about 4 inches of rocking motion. Now it's got virtually nothing. I had to put, well, straighten them, but I also had to fix that pivot rest, the different positions, and I put 2 fairly thick washers inside, and that helped to take care of a lot of the play that was there for that part. For the wheels, I didn't paint them. I left them original, and I also put a washer down inside there to stop them wiggling as much as they were. And they're much tighter as well, so it rolls much easier than it used to. You don't have to fight so much to keep it balanced.